Hey everyone, welcome back. I am here getting ready to use this month's Cards, Tags, and More kit and some papers and transparencies from my stash to make kind of a paper bag notebook, paper bag journal. I use the papers from this month's kit to decorate my paper bags, but I do have these printed kraft sheets that I pulled from the deep dark corners of my stash, and these transparencies that were also in the deep dark corners. A couple of those transparencies are little yellow bicycle, and one of them I have no idea. I think it was in some kind of pack I got years ago when I wasn't even sure what to do with transparencies. Anyhow, I am going to use they're just regular paper lunch bags, 5 inches across. And I kind of, more or less, I sort of eyeball things and work with the dimensions of the paper bag so that everything is 5 inches high. I guess it would be from when it's folded together. It's 5 inches high. And I fold things over. I don't cut the transparencies, and I don't cut my my kraft stock. I just fold them over, and this journal it's just a bunch of pockets actually. So I do cut my my papers from this month's kit so that they will cover some of the pages. There, I add in a spine, so it's going to be a 1-inch spine. So I just go from the center out 1/2 inch on each side. And I did want to kind of stiffen up that spine a little bit, so I do pull out just a piece of scrap chipboard I have, and I cut it down to size. And I do the same thing with all of my paper, or all of my transparencies, all of my kraft stock. I don't cut them. I don't cut the ends until I have it together, just because of the way the layers are and the way the bulk is. They're really not the same length, so I kind of put it together and then kind of marked where I wanted the ends of each page cut off. That's why I don't cut the ends to size right now. I focus more on putting the spine in on each section and making sure they're the 5 inches for the height and getting everything folded. So this, I didn't use fancy bookbinding tapes. I wanted everything to show, and a lot of bookbinding tapes, they're linen or some kind of fabric. They're not see-through. So I just used packing tape. You can probably use any kind of packing tape that you want. I just grabbed the Duck brand, which is what I had on hand, and I used that to reinforce the bins in my pages for the hinging. There, I use it for the hinging, just to reinforce where there's going to be a lot of movement. This is the bit of chipboard I used to make my spine. I just wanted to kind of give it a little bit of stability. So I just grabbed a piece of chipboard, cut it 5 inches by 1 inches, and just wrapped some of this month's cardstock around it. And glued it all down all good and together and everything. And then I just used my tacky glue. You can see the shine there already for that first cover bag where I have my packing tape already in place. And I really wanted to make sure that everything stayed down together, so I put binder clips all the way around and then set it off to let that glue dry up. Okay, this one, like I said, I did not cut any of my pages or my transparencies down. So they are various pockets. This particular page will open at the ends. I didn't seal the ends, I just sealed it across the center. This transparency I turned into like folder pockets. So I folded down the edge just to reinforce the edge of the pocket, and then put it all together. This craft stock piece is also, I think I turned this one into a pocket page, and with a flip, I'm trying to remember, pretty sure that that's what this one is. So I do fold over the ends just to give some strength to the edges. This one is the one that I make flaps over the pockets. I probably should, if I used different craft stock, I might have been able to keep track of this a little bit easier. But this one, so you can see I cut it down the center so that those flaps would open and close, but also so I would still have it doubled up at the spine. And I just cover everything that's kind of looks like it's going to need reinforcement with my clear packing tape, because I really wanted to kind of leave the designs and the craft and the paper bag color showing, just for that more vintagey look. Didn't necessarily have to be clean. Kind of a, I don't know, I kind of just considered an unfinished look, which actually it works for me. And you will kind of see why at the end. The real purpose I had for kind of leaving everything uncovered and visible. And after I had all of my pages reinforced, I just worked on how I wanted to layer it, and I did layer it. It's a paper bag for the cover, and then one of the craft stock pieces, and then a transparency, paper bag, craft stock, transparency, all the way through, because I did have 3 of the craft stocks and 3 transparencies. So it is actually kind of evenly distributed that way. And then it took me a bit of going through a lot of different ideas of how I wanted to bind my book. And I, in the end, decided to add some eyelets. So my first set of eyelets, because they don't go very deep, is just through that chipboard spine, and the first bag I used as a the cover, the paper bag cover. And I wanted to make sure everything was reinforced, so I put everything together in sections after this, and there are eyelets through all of the sections. I guess you can call them sections. The first set is the spine and the cover, and then I do the next 3 pages, which is craft stock, transparency, and another paper bag, and I put an eyelet through those. And I do a second section of craft stock, transparency, and paper bag, and put an eyelet through those. And then the center is just craft stock and a transparency, and I put those together. And I positioned my eyelets so that the finished side, as you can see there, those are black eyelets in the center, so the finished side is what is showing, and the unfinished side of the eyelet is what gets sandwiched in. You can use any variety of ties you would want: ribbons, laces, any kind of trims. This one is actually some macrame cord, so it's very, very thick, but it's also strong. It's made for being knotted and everything with macrame, so it can kind of take being pulled on tight like I did. And this is where, after I had everything together, everything lined up, and then I folded my book up and I used a Sharpie to mark the edges of my pages all lined up, and then took everything back apart and cut them down to size. And that was how I made sure that when my little notebook here closed, that my pages would be more or less even. This is my little folder and flap page, and to make sure that that flap opened and closed well, I just cut 1/2 inch in. I lined it up there on my board and just used a ruler and went from where the fold is to 1/2 inch in for that angle, just so it would close cleanly. Alright, for my cover cardstock from the kit, when I added the cardstock from the kit, I used double-sided tape. If you have the Scotch Advanced Tape Glider, that would work well too. It's easier for me to use double-sided tape like I was, to make sure it's right up to the edge, just to give it a nice good hold. I'm left-handed, and the Advanced Tape Glider is not the most left-handed friendly piece of equipment, so it does make it a little bit harder for me to get really close to edges. Oh, what is the bottom of your paper bags? They make nice little built-in pockets. So I just was going through the scraps of cardstock from my Mother's Day cards, and I still have a lot of strips left from when I made my Mother's Day cards on the first week, and I used it to decorate this back side here. You can see I have the bottom of the bag folded down, and then I come in and add some glue and turn that first fold right there into a pocket. And then I came through and I cut another piece to do a cover piece. There we go. A cover piece for that bottom of the paper bag. And then I have another piece and make another pocket. So it's two kind of shallow pockets that I turn my paper bag bottoms into. And I know it looks like I use a lot of double-sided tape, but I mostly use the double-sided tape on my cover piece just because it's out there as the first layer. And then I did switch over to just using my advanced tape glider on inner pages that wouldn't be as exposed. Whichever kind of glues and tapings that you're comfortable with doing, I'm sure would be just fine. Alright, I put my cover together, finished putting that one piece on, and I just pulled out this as my first section, and kind of worked. It probably would have been easier to glue my pockets together before putting everything together with the eyelets, but as is very common for me, I don't always know where I'm going with things when I start them, and just sometimes the way my brain works, the way I do things probably makes sense mostly only to me. So sometimes I make more work for myself, but in the end it's the only way that I can get things to make sense. So that's why I just grabbed up my double-sided tape on that transparency so that I could turn it into kind of a side pocket, and then I just decorated bits and pieces with some of the cutoffs from my other project. And then I used, that is a 1.5 inch hexagon punch. It's not made for thicker materials, so sometimes I would kind of just have to make the indents on my transparencies, and then I would come in with scissors so that I could cut all the way through. This is a transparency like folder pocket, so I just came in with my packing tape again just to seal up the end, and then used my craft knife and added a reinforcement to the edge there where that pocket is. So on the pages that I chose to make more like folder pockets, I would just seal up the ends of them with some glue, with some packing tape. And for the ones that are just side pockets, I would put little thumb holes with my hexagon punch in there. These pieces, I actually did wrap my double-sided tape all the way around both sides, since it is mostly a clear tape when the backing gets peeled off, and then slid it in between the folds on this transparency pocket to seal the ends up, so that it was a side open pocket. And that was just a piece of parchment paper, just to help me slide it in even with that tape exposed. I did eventually figure out it was a little bit easier if I would just kind of start the tape off, or start peeling the backing off, get it in place, seal it down, and then finish pulling it off. Worked a little bit better. And then cut out my thumb holes, and now all of my pages are put together, and I am just tying my book back together with that macrame cord. Okay, for my front cover decoration, I grabbed up one of those Tres Jolie butterflies, and I put white gesso on it so I could come in. These are the mica powders from this month's mixed media kit, and I just used that liquid color fluid medium from March's mixed media kit to turn them into some paints so that everything would stay sealed down. And I just kind of picked a couple colors, the blue, and I think that was kind of the lighter pinkish one that I used on with it. And then I used my diamond glaze to really hold that down there, because it's a clear glue and relatively strong, and I just weighed it down to make sure that the antennas and all the wing parts were fully attached. And then after it was dry, I came back in and I added a layer of the microglaze. Microglaze is kind of thicker, so it makes some 3D-ish type effect. So I added a line of it on the surface of my butterfly, and then sprinkled my micas on it. And after it was dry and it had really grabbed a hold of those micas, I brushed off the excess. And then I came in and I used that liquid color fluid medium as a top coat of those micas. And then I made a more pearlish, I used that kind of pearlish mica from this month's kit, and mixed it up and put it on and filled in the wings. And so there's kind of this glow around my butterfly now. I didn't dry it all the way. I did let it mostly air dry, but I did kind of want to do some of the drying beforehand. So now my little notebook is complete. It is completely put together. I only have that front butterfly on there for some decoration. I did look through on possibly adding some of the Satin crystals, but I hadn't really thought of a good place to put them on the inside, so I only added a few around my butterfly there on the cover. If you wanted to, you could also use your packing tape or whatever tape you might want to use to reinforce your paper bag pockets, since they do have that fold and it is a slightly thinner material than regular cardstock. I hadn't decided if I was going to do that yet or not. If you didn't want them opening up, you could just glue along the edges and just turn them into pockets like that. At this point in time, it's really up to you on whether or not you want them expandable or not, how long your cord is. I never added a closure because I cut that macrame cord extra long. My macrame cord was actually long enough to wrap around and just tie together. Lots of little pockets on here, some are made out of transparencies, so they're see-through, which I thought was kind of a cool effect to have in there. I am going to now explain why I left it unfinished and why I used this specific craft stock. You or whoever you give it to or whatnot, it can decorate it and personalize it, like with markers, paints, colored pencils, and some jelly pens. This was a different piece of craft stock that I was just kind of working some folds out on before I started my journal. Since my pens were within reaching distance, that's just kind of what I'm going to use right now as my example. So you can see, because these are this is a gel pen and it's not a translucent ink, it's an opaque ink, I can even write and color in on top of the black print on these pages. So it'd be very easy to use some kind of mediums to color in or to retrace your outlines and just really give a personal touch to your pages. You can write, those Baroque pages are not a heavy print. Even though they're printed, they have very muted colors. Even the prints are relatively muted, so you have places to write. You could write on your transparencies with alcohol inks, alcohol markers, Sharpies, items like that. So it really gives a lot of pockets and a lot of possibilities for personalization. I cut my macrame cord long because I wasn't sure how I was going to exactly do my spine, and if I had thought about wrapping it around like this, I probably would have cut it a little bit longer, but it still works. Thank you for joining us here at Tres Jolie. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, give us a thumbs up, and feel free to share the video. I hope that you enjoyed this project and it gave you some ideas of what you can make with some paper lunch bags and maybe some items you have in your stash, and create yourself your own personal little notebook. Thank you, and I will see you again next week.